My name is Ohn. I am currently the incoming board chair of Korean American Story. I've been involved with the organization as a board member for about 4 years, but I've known the founder and his efforts and his mission for 10 years now. So I guess rewinding a little bit, I was born in Korea, so I moved here when I was 4. I came to New York in '87. I remember the first place where we lived in Flushing on 149th Street, Elm Avenue. Yeah. So I remember, running around on the street in front of the house. I was lucky enough to grow up in a neighborhood of immigrants, and so didn't necessarily feel like I was excluded from anything. And I think that was, like I said, a blessing of growing up in Queens. Although, you had a hodgepodge of different cultures and different groups of people, especially a lot of different groups of immigrants in Flushing at the time, you still sort of found your pocket. Like there was that area around, Union Street and Main Street and Roosevelt Avenue, where every sign you looked up, you could essentially see in Korean and English. And so I think, looking back on it now, it was comforting to know that was always there. That community was there. So I went to high school eventually at Hunter, which is on 94th Street. And, I think about it now, and it was roughly 3 and change hours round trip every day to go back and forth from school. And that was, I know, like I said, thousands and thousands of students have done this over the years, but when I went to college and most of the people had grown up going to school within, 5-10 minute drive of their home, it did kind of stick out to me that, oh, I guess that's different. I guess that's unusual for someone to, take 2 forms of transportation just to get to school every day. So I went to Hunter, and I think that was very, formative experience as those teenage years always are. But it was also kind of the first time where I felt like, there was a good mix of different ethnicities and representation from all 5 boroughs and all of that, but there was still clearly a sense of in-groups and out-groups, right? There was, first and foremost, Hunter starts as an elementary school, and so probably about 10% of each incoming class is made up of kids who started to go to Hunter when they were 5. And so, they already have this in-group, and so they're the cool kids. They're a bit precocious. They've grown up in the city, and so like a Queens hick like me, like we don't know what we're doing. We're taking the subway to school for the first time, and there was a clear sense of these are the cool kids, right? And of course, you want to be one of the cool kids, and of course, you want to be accepted as a 12 or 13-year-old, 14-year-old. But I think Hunter did a good job of educating about, this is the New York City that we live in. We try to bring everyone together here because there's this deeply held belief there that you want people of different historical backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, socioeconomic classes to form this group, because there is this belief that diversity does lead to a deeper understanding and a more nuanced education. So, some of the classes that we took, led by our teachers, were very discussion-based. And so you would see how different people's upbringings, how their individual experiences kind of brought them to that place. And it was enriching, definitely. It was the first time I kind of left that Queens shell. I graduated high school in 2001, and it was still like Wall Street was king of New York, and so there was this sense like, all right, I gotta get this Wall Street job. So I went to undergrad at Georgetown, and again, another kind of culture shock, right? Because Hunter, because I was in that sheltered environment, I didn't necessarily feel like, oh, it's a strange thing for me to be Korean American or Asian American, and so I guess in college, like a lot of other people, you kind of, as you're developing your own identity and developing your own understanding of yourself. You explore. It's like, well, if everyone else sees me this way, what does that mean? What does that say about me? Right? What do I know about myself at first glance if I looked at myself in the mirror? Led to more exploration of what does this being Asian, what does being Korean mean, not just to myself, but to the people around me who don't know me. After undergrad, I came back, started working in finance as planned. For the most part, most of your managers and most of the people you see represented on the boards of these organizations are all still predominantly white and male. And so, there was definitely this idea of, okay, I'm an Asian American male, and I kind of fit into this mold. I, did the right things. I went to the right school. I chose the right career. But am I in this place where I'm more than just a worker bee, right? I guess especially at the junior levels, your contribution is largely commoditized, right? Although there were some Asian, largely male workers, there was, like I said, this tendency to be guarded. There was this tendency to be like, do your thing, and you don't really have to commiserate with anyone or empathize with anyone. You just have to get promoted, and then you'll be fine. Like there's this, as much as there's a community of Asian American workers, and I'm sure there are these professional societies that I never really partook in. Largely, your efforts are seen to be individual. Your contribution is seen to be individual, and so your merit is measured by that. Things are kind of changing now. They look at your broader impact on community, or as a corporate citizen. What does that mean? Do you bring some diverse ideas to the table and things like that? But at the time, I think you were kind of doing your own thing, and so you didn't really connect with people on a personal level, right? Your story was your story, and as much as it might have been similar to someone else's story, you didn't really know that. So right around this time, and I think I'd read the book a little earlier in college, but I revisited Min-Jin Lee's Free Food for Millionaires. So it was like, oh my God, I identify with so many of these characters in so many different ways. I work in finance, and I don't know if my identity here is accepted, or I'm supposed to be, the hardworking Asian who's silent and doesn't speak up about things and things like that. And so I think that instigated some soul searching. What was my function? What was my role? That book was probably the first one I read from a Korean American author, and it really did kind of change my expectation of what was possible. So whether we are trying to emphasize the importance of representation in media, in literature, in art, film, that does have a very personal impact, I think, on the individuals who are watching it. One of the first moments that I really even more deeply connected with, okay, this is how my personal story relates to the larger historical narrative, was when we started to work as an organization with Swallowtail, or Chebi now. The films that they were working on, the short film series called Flushing Stories, it was like, wow, this was shot where I take the bus every day, right? I mean, it's like, I know the bakery around the corner from where this scene was, right? And that really, I think, cemented that whole thought process of understanding why it's important to tell our stories, to see them broadcast, or to see them archived and shared. It was really revealing that I had such a deeply personal response to the short films. Although my story wasn't exactly along the same lines as Happy Cleaners, for example, I could definitely relate to the different situations and circumstances and struggles that are being portrayed there. So it gives this sense of belonging that I didn't have before. The story aspect, the Korean American story aspect that's largely untold. To uncover these stories it creates a community. It creates this sense of belonging, a sense that my experiences, while unique, are part of a larger pattern, a larger fabric, call it, that there are people who can relate to it or understand it. And I think that there's a deep comfort in that. So, you know, the reason I believe in this mission that we have at Korean American Story is that, you know, I guess a deeply personal reason is that, you know, you feel small as an individual, thinking that your story is just yours, and being able to put it in a larger context, I think, is meaningful, and it does provide comfort. My name is Ohn Choe, and this is my Korean American story.